This week, we are taking a crash course into spring and spring topics. If you missed episode 237, we talked about getting your house in order, getting spring cleaning done, and how to reduce the craziness and the stress of that. But today, we are going to focus on your homeschool. But before we go any further, I want to remind you that tomorrow is the final day of the Tidy Home 25% off sale. If you want to get in now, you can save 25%. All you need to do is enter coupon code SPRINGCLEAN over at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/tidyhome, or you can follow the link in the show notes, but you're going to want to do that before tomorrow evening, Friday, March 15th at 11:59 Eastern Standard Time. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Get your home chore management system all set in order. And today, let's take a bit of a dive here into getting your homeschool all set and organized and getting yourself, your mind, in a good frame of reference when it comes to your homeschool and how to approach it this spring season. Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where you'll learn tips and strategies that will empower you to home educate your children. I'm Leigh Nguyen, a homeschool mom of over 12 years, which includes 2 graduates. When I started homeschooling, I was pretty much on my own and was desperate for encouragement and help. My mission is to be a source of encouragement and help to you. Whether you are just beginning your homeschool journey or you're deep into the homeschool lifestyle, Little by Little Homeschool wants to help you stay the course, because all the time you are investing into your children is completely worth it. If you're ready to take your homeschool to new levels, keep listening. The spring season hits and you are stuck somewhere between throwing everything out the window, all of your plans, all of your curriculum, all of the book, everything that you have figured out and that you wanted to do. So you're stuck between throwing that out the window and having just a free-for-all for this spring, but also feeling the stress of not getting everything done. You started off the homeschool year strong. You had plans, you had goals, you might have had everything mapped out if that's your personality. Or maybe you're a little bit more free, but you still had places that you wanted to get to in the curriculum, or you wanted to accomplish and get through specific ones. And you're feeling that stress of right now saying, we are close to the end of the homeschool year, and I didn't even get maybe halfway through, or we aren't all the way through like I wanted to get done. But you're also feeling that tension of wanting just to throw it all out the window and just be like, forget it, that's it, that's fine. We're just going to have a free-for-all this spring and see what happens. When my kids were little, I loved when spring weather began. I mean, I like it right now when it begins too. But specifically, when they were younger, it just felt so good. And I would feel like, oh, we made it. And spring fever would begin to set in. And we all would have a little bit more of a pep to our step. And I myself felt the pressure of spring cleaning and getting the house in order and feeling like things had been so closed up for so many months and just want to organize and purge all the things. And I so wish that I had developed the tidy home back then, but I didn't. I had to go through that in order to come up with the system so that I can then share it with you. And I now have the tidy home to help me manage all of that and not feel this immense pressure to organize every single drawer and every single closet and every single little corner and dust everything and mop everything and clean every single thing. But I felt that pressure back then. And I would go back and forth between being a fun homeschool mom and a strict homeschool mom. Now I realize that there is a middle road, and today's episode is going to help you find the middle road for you and your family. But hold on, don't skip ahead. Listen through and then wait until the end. Number 7 here, it's going to blow your mind as a homeschool mom. I promise you that. Okay, let's get into these 7 things on how to reset and refresh your homeschool this spring so you can enjoy the season, but also keep yourself from burning out. All right, we're going to start off with obviously number 1. Are you feeling burned out with some of your curriculum? Maybe some of it is just so intense. Maybe there's a lot of reading with it, a lot of writing. Maybe there's a lot of extra resources and there's just a lot, or it's just feeling heavy. It's not feeling exciting. It's feeling boring and dull. Well, maybe you can switch it or ditch it. However, before I go any further with this, I have a caveat. When it comes to math, maybe you can switch it, but I highly recommend against ditching math altogether. switch it out with another curriculum or take things a little bit slower or add in some game schooling when it comes to math. But I do not suggest completely getting rid of math and not doing any math, especially when your kids are in the younger years and just every day builds upon the previous day. And so by doing math today, tomorrow's math will be easier. But let's talk about things like maybe history or geography or just any of the other electives. Maybe even doing some music study or art study. I mean, there's so many things that you could be doing as a homeschooler. There's just so many options. But if there is a resource or a curriculum or multiple that are having you feel burned out, think about switching it out for something else or completely ditching it. I know. What if you didn't do your history all the way the whole year through? Whoa, guess what? Everybody would be absolutely fine. So if you're feeling burned out with some curriculum, switch it or ditch it. Number 2 is to take your subjects outside when possible. Now, I know spring weather hits in different places at different times. Some of you all might be experiencing some actual spring weather and warm weather right now, and some of you might still have snow on the ground. But like I mentioned in the episode earlier this week, the official first day of spring is next week. So that's why we're talking about spring. So you're all set and ready for whenever the warmer weather starts to hit your area where you live. But take your subjects outside when possible. That might mean kind of reorienting when you're doing school. Maybe it's not quite warm enough out to go out and do some subjects outside until maybe 11 a.m. Maybe your kid get to play a bit more in the morning before you get started, and you kind of adjust the time that you're doing your homeschool so that you can do it at a time when the sun is out and shining and it just feels good. This might include going out on a back deck. Maybe you have a front porch, or it might mean grabbing a blanket, heading out to the yard. If you live anywhere like me, it's mud season at this time of the year, so we tend to maybe stick to porches and that kind of stuff. But take your subjects outside when possible. Let them play around while you read. Let them do their math outside. Now, I know sometimes there are some kids who would get too distracted by such a thing, so you need to know your child and need to know what is going to work for them. Maybe you have kids where it wouldn't be okay for them to go outside on their own and do subjects because they wouldn't accomplish maybe that math review, those 10 problems that you wanted to do. It might be a couple hours later and they might not have gotten through any of them. So it's you knowing what's going to work for them. Maybe they need to do some inside and you can do all your together stuff outside. Or maybe you all go outside and they work on their math quietly and you sit outside there and you read a book, drink a cup of coffee, and are there to answer questions and to kind of help wrangle in the focus when it needs to be wrangled in. Number 3 is to give some more margin to you. Because I know, inevitably, even if you've been through the tidy home, and especially if you're just starting right now, you're starting at a time, it's a great time to start, obviously, but you're starting at a time where you have not been keeping up with things. And I promise you, if you're starting with the tidy home right now, next spring is going to feel a lot different. So much less pressure and less stress will be on you. So if you feel like you need to add a little bit of margin because you want to get some spring cleaning done, you maybe want to get some projects done, whether they're inside or outside, maybe consider doing some online classes for your kids. Again, this will depend upon the kids and the ages. Maybe there's something on OutSchool that they would like to do that's a little bit more of an elective. It's maybe not something that's super serious. You can also maybe find a video series that they can do, and they can watch that video series while you are there in the next room in the kitchen, maybe working on cleaning out some kitchen cabinets or the refrigerator, and you can hear them and you can see them and you know what's going on. Maybe you let them follow some of their current interests. Maybe there's something they're really interested in. Maybe it's baking. Maybe it is gardening. Or let them just follow their hobbies. It doesn't even have to be something that is necessarily a life skill or something that could follow under what maybe you would traditionally think is an elective. Maybe it's just a hobby that they have. Let them follow that. You can count that as an elective. I promise you. I do that in high school. I count their hobbies as electives, and you can do that as well even if you have kids in elementary school. It is not a waste of time. I find that kids will pursue a hobby or an interest, and once they feel that they have mastered that, then they'll move on to something else. And then you'll have some kids who will take a long time, and you'll find that that thing that they were interested in, that hobby, is something that they do as a lifelong, possibly career or a lifelong hobby. So this time right now is not wasted. But if you're feeling like you need some more margin, then add in classes that are online or something. Take some pressure off of you and let them have some time to pursue some interests. Number 4 is to add in some field trips. This is a great time of the year to go on a field trip. There is an episode, and I will drop it in the show notes, where we chatted about field trips and just some practical ideas. It was a really good episode, so I want to encourage you after this episode to listen to that one. But think about taking some field trips. Get onto your Google Maps and type in maybe museums, or type in parks or history or something that could possibly be in your area that isn't a huge field trip. Maybe you're like, okay, I don't want to go more than 30 minutes. Take a look and see what is open and go and do that field trip. Maybe it's just a half a day field trip. Maybe it's an entire day field trip. I do want to say, if you take a half a day field trip, do not come home and do all of your homeschool. That was homeschool for the day, and that was enough. But add in some field trips. That way it takes some of the pressure off of you of doing lessons and trying to keep up with things. Everybody gets out of the house. There's a different type of pressure because you have some planning and maybe some lunches to pack and some coordinating of time, but it's going to be worth it, I promise you. Number 5, kind of similar to that, maybe not necessarily a field trip, but set up some meetups with your homeschool friends. Go on a hike. Meet at some parks where it has maybe some playgrounds or just some open fields for the kids to play. Go to a nature center. Find places that you and your friends can just meet up easily. Nobody has to have their house in order. Nobody has to clean up or anything. It's just simply everybody meeting somewhere else. And you all can run around, and your kids can run around, and they can get muddy and they can get dirty. They can have fun. They can be outside. Everybody can be outside in the fresh air, and then they can go home. And you can take off all the muddy clothes, and everybody can maybe take a good nap or wind down for the afternoon, and hopefully then sleep really well that night. But the spring is a great time to reconnect with our homeschool mom friends. And you might say, nobody's setting up any type of get-together. Well then, girlfriend, you are the one that's going to set that up. It's not hard. Go ahead and see what the options are. Reach out to some friends. Maybe you have a large group of friends and you just say, this is the date and time, this is where we're going to be. And whoever shows up, shows up. Or maybe you just have 2 or 3 really good friends. Then try coordinating what day is going to work for you and set up a time and a place to get there. And maybe you can say, hey, let's do this every other week. And you can just say, hey, on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., we are meeting at this playground from 9 to noon, and that's what we're going to do. That would be so fun, wouldn't it? So I highly encourage you to do that. All right, we've got 2 more to go, all right? And I promise number 7 is going to be a good doozy for you. Number 6 is to don't overload your family schedule. Not only are you homeschooling, but there probably is some activities. Now that spring is around, possibly winter sports are getting done, and then spring sports start up, and then you have activities for maybe different clubs, church activities, and there's just more options in the spring that things are available for your kids to join. I want to encourage you not to overload your schedule. You're going to want some margin. Those beautiful days where you can go outside and just enjoy the warmth and look at the little flowers that are coming up and just watch just spring and just feel a part of it. Those days you're going to be so thankful that you didn't overload your kids. So take a look at your schedule and talk to your husband. See what is really important for your family. Because the more you overload it, the more stress you're going to feel. The more stress that you feel, the less of a fun homeschool mom in the spring you're going to be, because you're going to be super stressed. But maybe you enjoy a super strict schedule with a lot of activities, then go for it, okay? But if you are feeling like we need a little bit more margin overall, it's okay to say no to some activities. Number 7, we're going to final drum roll here, right here. Are you ready? I want you to release the pressure to get all of your homeschool curriculum done. I know. You're like, what? Don't I have to get 100% of the spelling workbook done? Don't I have to get 100% of the math, 100% of the writing, of the geography, of the history, of the science? No, you don't. Even the public schools and the private schools, they don't even get through all of their work. Now, I know that we aren't comparing, but a lot of us are still stuck in that schooling mindset. And when we hear that, that gives us a little bit of relief. So that's why I'm saying that. If that gives you a little bit of relief of saying, oh, so my second grader here at home is maybe accomplishing the same amount in the book as they are in the public school. And maybe if that makes you feel better, that's good. We are going to move on from there, and we're going to work on some deschooling though, okay? So that you don't feel like you have to compare. But just know in the public school, they don't get through all this stuff. I mean, think back to your own childhood and your own even going up through high school, how often did you get through the entire textbook? I mean, honestly, don't even remember at all. It wasn't important. If we didn't, I was actually probably relieved. So don't feel like you have to get through anything because you don't have to. Kids go at their own pace. A family can go at their own pace. So let's say science, and you're doing it as a family. The family can go at their own pace. Instead of during the year rushing to get through, we have to get through so we can get to, say there's 100 pages, we can get to page 100 on the last day of homeschool. What if you slowed down a little bit because the kids were more interested and they wanted to take a different turn? They wanted to look into something a bit more, and the textbook said you needed to move on to the next lesson. But your kids were more interested in still pursuing more information about the one that you were in. Well, I'm going to highly suggest put the book aside and then follow that rabbit hole, follow that trail, see where it goes and see what your kids want to explore. And they'll let you know when they're done and they're ready to move on to the next thing. But I also want to add, now this is not legal advice, but I live in a very strict homeschool state. And even in our homeschool regulations, it states that we are to get through 80% of the material. So that doesn't say 100%. So if that makes you feel any better, again, not legal advice. You can interpret that how you want to interpret it. And sometimes we switch curriculum in the middle of the year. I find that especially when it comes to high school, because we'll just be going through, I'm like, this is just not jiving very well. Or we find something that's even better and is in a way that my child can learn better. But just know that you don't have to get through it all. And I want you to release that stress and to release that pressure that you have to get through the whole book. What if you don't get through the whole book? Does that mean that you never get through the whole book? Because maybe it's, again, let's go back to the science. You're like, I really like this science book, this curriculum. Well, then it's okay to tuck it aside and say, next year, this is what we're going to start off with. We're going to start off with the last 4 lessons in this book. And that's what we're going to begin. And then you can pick up another book after that to begin next homeschool year. It's okay to put it on the shelf and say, we'll pull it back off again in a couple more months when we start back with homeschool. And especially when it comes to science, there is a lot of science going on outdoors. So you are not neglecting them when it comes to science at all. All right, I hope that you are feeling better about your homeschool. I hope that you are feeling like you can reset and you can refresh it and are excited about going into this spring season. Don't let the fog of stress and anxiety and pressure that you put on yourself keep you from really enjoying the spring season. Don't let it hold you back from enjoying the spring season with your kids. This is the last call here on the podcast for the Tidy Home. Don't forget that it's 25% off, ends tomorrow night, Friday, March 15th at 11:59 Eastern Standard Time. Use the coupon code SPRINGCLEAN to get 25% off at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/tidyhome. The link is also in the show notes. I am looking forward to seeing you in there, but friend, let me be the first to say happy spring. Thank you for listening, friend. I'd love to connect with you more. You can find social media links in the show notes and share this episode with a friend who could use a boost to her homeschool. See you back here real soon.